everyone, welcome to another episode of How to Get an Internship. Today we're here with the hardware team for Microsoft. I know that a lot of people have the misconception that Microsoft is only for software, and obviously it's not. We're all here in hardware. So let's start. Could you all introduce yourselves, say where you're from, what you're doing, what your background is, and yeah.
My name is Jose. I'm a hardware engineer here at Microsoft. I'm originally from San Juan, Puerto Rico, and by degree I'm a mechanical engineer.
I'm Alex. I grew up in Boston, went to school at Carnegie Mellon, studied mechanical engineering, and I'm a manufacturing engineer here at Microsoft.
My name is Malcolm. I am from Atlanta, Georgia. I graduated from North Carolina A&T, where I studied industrial and systems engineering, and I am now a strategic sourcing engineer.
Hi, my name is Jose Sarmiento. I'm from Lima, Peru, and I'm an industrial engineer.
And the last one. Hello, my name is Victoria. I'm from Buenos Aires, Argentina. I studied industrial engineering at USC, and I work as a dev PM, such as your internship.
Yes. Well, let's get started with the questions. So my first question would be, when you're talking to a candidate, what makes them stand out, right? All of your recruiters, and it's so what makes them stand out, or what makes you not forget about the candidate?
I think when I've interviewed people, if a candidate has some unique experiences and some unique kind of practical knowledge that they had, whether it's some sort of club, some sort of team they've done that shows a little bit of experience with hardware more than just classwork.
Yeah. For me, it would be passion, and it doesn't have to be something fancy or something that it's exclusive. But if there's a subject or a story that this person can just tell it with a lot of energy, that can tell the details, you can almost feel it like a movie in your head. That just gives it a sense of this person is genuine, and you want to learn more because you want to see more of that movie.
I think I would agree on that. I think the personality is huge for me. Seeing whether the person fits or not in the organization is something that is very important. Microsoft is a very special place to work, and not. It's a personality that fits into this place. So for me, having that passion denotes that fit for the company, and that's what I look for.
Yeah, I would agree. I think a combination of the personality, the energy, the passion. I personally, when I meet them, whether I'm interviewing or just meeting them at the career fair, and they can show me that they can be themselves. I think I genuinely appreciate that, and just the transparency of that person and them not trying to mask or be someone else and just being no one but themselves. I really appreciate that, and it just shows me that when potentially if they are in the workplace or if there's somebody that I'm working with, and that wouldn't change.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off everyone's answers. I think it's definitely authenticity and uniqueness, right? It's a special workplace that we're in, and we have to make sure that we are choosing the right person, and if you're passionate about what you do, and there's a way of linking that passion and that authenticity to our community, we'll definitely consider you.
I think that being here at Microsoft, I'm still an intern, right? And I can see that every single person that works here, even intern full-time, is definitely has something. They all bring something to the table, right? So going off to that, what are some mistakes that you see people do when they approach you, when they're trying to say, hey, interviewing you or something? What are some highly mistakes you see that people shouldn't be doing that you would recommend? Hey, don't do that, right? Any advice for anyone who wants to go and talk to a recruiter?
I can start. I think one of the key things that people forget when they talk to me is that it's always a two-way street or two-way conversation. So make sure to ask questions. We want to know you, but feel free to know me as well. Getting to know who you're talking to makes it a really easy way to know more about the company at a personal level. And you can leverage that information when you're interviewing. For example, you can say, hey, I met Jose, he's a manufacturing engineer, he does this, and that. And you've already accumulated a bunch of information that maybe your peers won't have. So that's an extra step there.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. The questions show that you've either been listening if you come up with questions beforehand, or that you've done your background research into kind of either the job or the company that you might have
it's very related to confidence. I do realize right away whether someone is confident on what they're showing. So I think standing there, asking the right questions, and showing off as someone that like knows what they're doing is really important for sure. I mean, obviously you cannot just say whatever. You need to say something that makes sense. But I think the way people say things is very important for sure.
Okay.
Talking with something that Malcolm said about hiding yourself, some people decide to hide themselves by just enumerating, like, I won this certificate, I won this award, I have this concentration, I took this class, this da 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 da. But you just get a big list of things, and they're really proud achievements. But you want to know like the essence, like you went to and got this award because of something, like you did it because you had a strong passion on something, and that's the item that I'm interested in. Not so much the like this is my list of awards and my resume is 3/4 of just like bullet points of awards, and I'm gonna give you a whole minute of all of them.
Yeah, I think for me it kind of goes back to the research piece and just kind of coming to the table with something that you already know. I find like when people just come and they say, well, I want to work at Microsoft, like what do you guys have for me? Or I want a job, right? And I think I don't think that you have to know exactly what it is that you want to do, but just to have some type of idea of something that you may be passionate about, something that you may like, and you've already done, like you guys said, some type of research to see what those types of jobs and roles look like at the company, and then we can have a conversation. But if not, then it's nice to meet you, I guess.
It's just very hard.
For sure.
And we heard like the same things from like what makes a candidate successful. I think we're kind of hearing it again. It's like that what makes you unsuccessful if you seem like rehearsed and not really passionate and just going through a list. But if you can like demonstrate what you're passionate about, then that's going to set you apart, and also help people find a good fit for you when you do start. Right, because if they see what your passions are and you're able to explain what your passions are, then they can know a good position for you, a good job for you, versus kind of you're generically like might have good grades but are just bland otherwise.
I think getting off that, we do find a lot that the people that have the best grades were not exposed maybe to different experiences or didn't do like side activities or internships. So I wouldn't focus on getting like a 4.0. Like this is something that at least I check for, and I work with Jose very closely. Like we doubt on the person that has the 4.0, and I had a 4.0 in school, so like it's not like I was a super nerd there.
Not talking about me,
but it's true, right? I see someone that has a 4.0, I'm like, okay, and I know because I did it, right? You study all the time, and it's like, okay, you need to do something else to be a well-rounded candidate. So I think that is very important. A lot of people tend to worry about that a lot and focus on getting that best grade that you can, and it's not always the most important thing for sure.
I think you find it anywhere, like the part of just being too focalized. There's candidates that are just way too focalized on their work experiences, or just way too focalized on student leadership, or way too focalized on research and academics. And you want that roundness because it's just a diversity of experiences. Like this diversity of experiences just gives you wisdom, and like you just have like color. You're not just one little shade.
And the real the work environment is very much it requires a broad amount of different experiences, different types of work, and the kind of more broad you are, the easier you can fit in with different groups of people and be successful. I think a lot of us have worked with folks who tend to be very focused and deep down, and they can be good at that one pillar. But then when it comes to communication or sharing or working with new teams, there's a little more friction.
Yeah,
totally. I think what we're all just saying is balance, right?
Balance.
A healthy
Sure.
balance. A balance of the academics, of the social, of the non-negotiable skills, the interpersonal skills, the emotional intelligence, along with the 4.0, right? Those are all things that are extremely important.
Yeah, and here at InternMakers, we have talked about that, right? That a lot of people focus on 4.0, and there's actually this study that we always talk about that they asked employers what they look for in their candidates, and GPA was one of the last ones. Like if you had no work experience, it had more weight than you actually having a high GPA. So I love the fact that you guys are saying that, because so many people right now are probably focusing so much on that 4.0 to get a job, but they don't know that in reality that's not what all you're looking for, right?
I think what you're doing on that regard is great. I mean, since we're very young, they tell you in high school you have to get a good grade to be able to do that, and then you get to college, and the easy way to succeed in college is to get a good grade. You get a good grade, you succeed. But there are these all other factors that I think, thank you for doing all of this and doing this great job, because it's not as easy to know how to do it, right? And that's why people go, and I include myself, going into that easy route. I get a good grade and that's how I succeed, because I have no way of understanding how I can.
That might be really interesting for people is interviews. So a lot of people get nervous and they might be great candidates, but sometimes the nerves get to them. What would be an advice for you when you start to freak out to calm down? You know, or what have you guys used to calm down in these situations?
So I think as a long-term advice, I think these candidates prepare in every possible way. So they're great candidates because they probably are great in school and they have all these activities and they did all these internships and stuff. I think preparing for an interview is a skill that one acquires. It's not that like you're born with it or not, right? We all prepare for that. So I think looking like long-term, like it's something that everyone has to like work on. You know, you do mock interviews, you train with your friends, you know, with your parents, like whoever it is, and you just like build that skill. And then I think while in the interview, I think the best way, or at least that I use to cope with it, is to think that I'm playing like a game. You know, it's like at the end, what you have to lose, right? You just need to have fun, and I think creating that awareness of like, hey, I want to have fun in this moment right now, brings also that like extra personality and extra like passion that Jose was talking about. So at least that's what I do. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to second your comment about preparation. And you need to know yourself a little bit too. If you know you're going to get nervous, you can prepare more, right? And that also, you can set yourself up for the expectation, like, look, I'm going to get nervous. Here's what's going to happen to me when I'm in that interview. You can prepare for that. You can run through scenarios to make sure that experience isn't new and scary. It might still be a little scary, but at least it's not new, and you kind of know how to handle it. Also know that you're by being authentic. I think that helps take a little bit of nervousness away as well, because you can just be you. I know it's a little scary if you don't think you're like worth it, or you think you're lesser than other folks, but you're getting the interview because you've already crossed some sort of threshold, right? And so just being you takes all the pressure off a lot of that second layer of thought you need to have to try and pretend to be something else.
Sometimes in my interviews I acknowledge the fact that I am nervous, and it takes all the nerves out, because sometimes when you say like your vulnerabilities or something, you have that power over them later on, right? So that's something I've used in everybody. What about technical interviews? If someone doesn't know a technical interview, what would you do?
Let's see. Maybe playing along what Vicky was saying, like long-term and short-term. Okay. Long-term, what I found that works, at least when I was in the same shoes of getting nervous, was, and I got this advice actually from an actual friend, which was like record yourself. Get your phone, like put it in front of you, and you make your own interview, and you'd be surprised like the amount of like little mannerisms that you find. Like for me, it was like I used to always like love to touch my ear, like all the time, and that was my nervous tick. And irregardless of the number of practice that I did with friends, they just don't tell you that you touch your ear. But when you can see your like yourself on your camera, you're like, wow, I maybe shouldn't do that. So that helps your nervousness long term, because you've practiced it, you've seen yourself, like you kind of know what to expect. Short term, I mean, there's some like little techniques that always help, like Mariana said, like acknowledge your vulnerabilities. Mine was like, I remember my coach from soccer was like, go to the bathroom, get the coldest water that you can, just put it in the back of your neck. That typically calms you down. Breathe, and then get out, and your body feels better. So, two advice: long term, record yourself; short term, get some cold water.
I also do power poses. I go to the bathroom. And like.
That's what they also say like in exams. Like
research says that.
Research says that, like move your heart. Like they all do push-ups. Like
totally. Body language.
Yeah, I think on the technical portion of the interview, at least this is what we look for, or what I look for. I don't tend to look for the best answer to a problem. It's like the thought process that you have. So I think it helps a lot in like removing nerves, walking through your thought process. So you don't have to necessarily get there, but if you go like telling them this is what I'm thinking now and this is how I'm approaching it, it helps you first show the interviewer that you have some idea what you're talking about, tell them how you think, but also giving them the option to help you. Because if you never start with anything, it's just very hard for them to give you a line and just say, throw that like lifeline type of a thing, you know? So I think if you start walking through a process and then they might realize that you're not going on the right path, they can steer you back and you might find the answer.
I can't agree more. Like, that is exactly what I was going to say. So you saved me some time. But yeah,
Alright.
exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah, Vicky, you definitely hit that right on the head. Even because, I mean, once you actually get the job, nobody's actually expecting you to do a perfect job. They want to see how you think about the problem and how you come up with solutions and how you think through like all the things that you were saying. So like it starts in the interview, but they're looking at that and trying to get a gauge of that, because once you actually start in your role, like that's something that you'll be doing night in and night out.
And there isn't even a right answer when you're doing like real work. So your thought process being robust is what really matters, and that is what people are going to place their trust in, is you having a good thought process leading to a good answer, not just randomly coming up with some idea, right? No one's going to believe you. They're going to ask you to go through your thought process anyway. So.
Can you guys like kind of tell what disciplines, what positions are there here that people might not be aware of, right? Because we have sourcing, development, manufacturing, supply chain. I don't know if anybody wants to like say a little more about those things.
And Malcolm, you work in kind of like a role that's people don't really learn about in school.
Yeah, people don't know that
yeah.
sourcing exists.
Yeah, talk about your stuff.
Like,
Go ahead.
How do I dive into sourcing? So again, I'm a sourcing manager, and essentially when you think about our hardware devices, they all have to start somewhere. And so as the ID team or as the designers think about what that device looks like, we, sourcing, goes to our suppliers and we try to understand, of the people who are building this device, of the people who are building this product, who do we believe has the best capabilities to be able to deliver this, so we are able to give these to our customers and continue to make them happy. So sourcing, we get the components from the suppliers. So you have a Surface laptop in your hand, you have the motherboard, you have your key sets, the touch display module, the enclosures, the mechanicals, all of those components come from our suppliers. And so my role in sourcing is to make sure that our suppliers are getting those parts to the other suppliers at the right time, right place, right time, making sure that we're securing the supply chain, making sure, more importantly, that we're getting them at good prices, so we can manage the costs and then ultimately deliver those products to our customers.
Yeah. And I think one cool thing to note is, you could be part of that job as a mechanical engineer.
Exactly.
But also as a mechanical engineer, you could do what Alex or myself do, which is also not what the typical mechanical engineer does at Microsoft, or what you would think we would do. Because when you think about mechanical engineering in consumer electronics, you would think, oh, I'm always spinning CAD or I'm always designing. But actually, my job is more of the interface between the manufacturing team in Asia and the product design team here in Redmond in Seattle. So we interface in making sure that the design is assembly friendly, repair friendly, and that the materials we're choosing are the right ones, because yes, we can maybe make it, but it may be crazy expensive and then we're not making money. So it's always about that happy medium, and we're always in that negotiation and that back and forth. So.
Right, and our job involves a lot of statistics, more so than like the stress calculations, like beam bending's typical like mechanical engineering courses. But then you have the folks on the mechanical engineering team, on the design team, doing those type of things, kind of more traditional mechanical engineering, doing design in CAD, that type of work as well.
I'll take the mechanical engineer example. A mechanical engineer can be doing our job, so we're dev PMs. And
What
you
is
can
dev?
Development.
And
So
what's
you-
PM, actually?
Program manager. So you can be working with other engineers trying to control schedule, budget,
Yes.
resources, and making sure that the product, or
Is
I don't know,
going
the
in
bucket
the-
is going on schedule and it's
Mhm.
meeting the requirements that it should be meeting. So I think the mechanical engineer example extrapolates to like electrical engineering or industrial or whatever it is, in that you can have so many different roles, and I think that's the
Also
beauty of Microsoft.
metallurgical, there's so many engineers that can fit into Microsoft, right?
Yeah,
For sure.
and Jose and I have talked about manufacturing. There's a whole, from a mechanical perspective, there's a whole electrical side and parallel teams that do all the same things. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for me, I'm an industrial engineer, but industrial engineers are like the plague. They can be like anywhere. Like
That's true. You guys are everywhere.
But it's like, I think sometimes when you think of a big company, you just think that they only hire for what they're known for. Like Microsoft is known for their software. Apple is only known for like their iPhone. Google just again for software. But these companies are large. They have many like core businesses that support the making of it. So it's important to just go and explore. Like if you're really passionate about working for a very large company, but you're not like the major that you would think, you'd be surprised how the opportunities just exist, and you just have to insist.
I'm pretty sure they can ask you, right? Like, hey, like for example, I remember when they recruited me, I was like, are you sure? Like I don't have to code? Because I hate coding, guys. Like I hate coding. I don't like to code. So, right, like I'm pretty sure if they ask you, hey, is there really like a position you guys wouldn't mind, right? Because there is a lot of things that we don't know until you're inside. So I guess my last question for you all to wrap this up is any advice you would have for someone who wants to get into Microsoft?
I
Think it deeply, okay?
Yeah, I think this is a question that comes up a lot, more with the students when we are on campus. For me, it's big that students care. If you show up to every single event, if you're always there, if we feel that you really want to do this and you are a great candidate, we will for sure try our best to have you come to Microsoft. I think it's like the basic like people-to-people interaction, right? It's like it's so easy to empathize with someone that you realize wants to be here, and you try to help them as it's just natural for a human being. So I would say that show up to every single event that you can, make sure that you're prepared, do your research, show up confident, and just be yourself.
Okay.
I want to second that, because going to every single event, I, in some recruiting, would learn people's names just through a few events. Like, oh, and we'd be looking at resumes, and you say, oh, you know, that's person X. Like, oh, I know them. Like, I talked to them a couple times. Like, they seem like very interested. Versus someone who might have the same credentials that just has handed me a resume. I go, I don't even know what that person looks like. Like, they look qualified, but I have this other person who I know, who I've spoken with, I really understand who they are. You know, it's totally different.
I'd say as well, follow the rules. Like if we say apply online or go to this link, like do those things. I know that like applying online has this bad connotation of like, oh, like this person doesn't like me, like they're just sending me to the website. But actually, like, we need this. Like, we need you to have like the profile, your resume submitted in there, so then we can schedule for an interview and everything like flows and your information is protected. So, like, yeah, follow the rules. Like,
I'm really happy you mentioned that. So, what about the schools that they don't go recruit there physically? What would you recommend to those students who really want to get into hardware and don't have the opportunity to interact with you guys?
We have a whole part of our recruiting. It looks at online applicants as well. Yeah,
awesome.
so please like continue to apply online. Like there are certain schools we go to. We don't have infinite people to go to infinite schools, but we do look at folks online as well.
Okay.
They look at every single resume, believe it or not. HR spends a lot of time screening resumes.
Yeah, I think like Devices was like 50% online applications and 50% schools that actually went.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the stats are for the company itself, but I bet it's considerable amount is application online.
I mean, I got online application.
You guys?
Yeah, I think one piece of advice would be talk to someone who works here or has worked here. You know, you have, if you're tuning in from El Paso, you know, we have Mariana, we have a bunch of people. But if not, if you have someone or you know someone or someone that knows someone, talk to us, because, you know, you never know what the company's like until you ask someone who's worked there or who's been there. There's a lot to learn about it, and about us and how we interact on a daily basis. And yeah, I think from there you could take it a step further and
I think just a combination of everybody again.
All right.
The persistence, the networking. Like, we live in the day and age of LinkedIn now, so if you don't know anybody, like, that's you can always rely on going to LinkedIn to just put in Microsoft recruiters, right? But I think for devices specifically, we all are extremely invested in bringing in good talent, and so I think as long as, like they said earlier, making sure that you're going to events, making sure that you're meeting with people, not only giving the resumes, but following up again and again, just to make sure that you're staying on these people's radars, because even if we don't catch that maybe the first or second time, like, people like Alex, like, we're returning to these universities and we're coming back, and so we're always going to remember, oh, that's that was her, okay? So it's always important to continue to follow up and make sure that we're all on the same page.
And honestly, adding to that also, like, you know, the recommendation that they give you, like, send a thank you email after the event.
Ooh.
They're actually very powerful. Like, maybe of the 80 students that come to the event, one does it or two does it.
Really?
Like, you'd think that more people do, but it's only one or two. And that one or two, you, like, when you said, like, you start to, like, make the connections. It's like,
It's those little things that make the difference, right? Like, how bad do you really want it?
Yep, and if it's an informational or whatever, like, thank you for, like, your time. Nice, short and sweet, gives you a lot of brownie points.
Yeah, because we kind of alluded to this earlier, but, like, you know, the technical skill, like, once you cross some very basic threshold, you've checked that box. But the interpersonal skills are much, I think, more of a scale where you can differentiate yourself. So.
Because they're uncoachable.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and we know you're smart. You know, you made it past the line, and I think that's what Alex is trying to say, right?
Yeah.
You know, we know you're smart. We know you can do the job from the technical side, but, you know, will you be able to survive in, like, our environment, in our community? Like, you know, is it sustainable to have you here? So I think that's what we're looking for eventually.
Totally.
Guys, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I'm pretty sure you're going to help so many students and you're going to get an amazing talent for next summer. So thank you all for doing this.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
And everybody knows that if you like this, share it with someone. You might know someone who needs this, and send us your questions through LinkedIn or something, right?
Yep.
For sure.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.